Hey, I got this really cool idea. What if God was a dick? Like a really snooty, pretentious dick. I know, right? Totally original. And get this. What if he creates Jesus and Jesus is like really laid back and cool and loves everyone and doesn't understand evil? So when he goes to earth and people kill him, he's like, what? And then God is mad, but at Jesus because he let people kill him. It's totally original, right? I mean, it's not like it's been done in The Last Temptation of Christ, The Liar's Gospel, The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ, The Nazarene, The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, Behold the Man, Only Begotten Daughter, Christ our Lord out of Egypt. But now it's with a twist. I added in Superman. It's cool, right? 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 So, Second Coming finally came out. It was originally going to be a Vertigo book, but it got canned, partly due to some controversy about the subject matter, and partly because Mark Russell didn't want to edit out parts of the book. I'd love to say this book was worth the wait or that it's hot garbage, but it's not. It's pretty meh. Like the kind of thing you'd expect an edgy college kid to write. Oh, look, God's a dick. Oh, look, Jesus is so nice, he doesn't understand why people are evil. It's been done so many times, it's actually hard to find stories affirming the Christian mythos, at least ones not written by fundamentalists. There's nothing new being explored in Second Coming outside of the twist of having not Superman try to teach Jesus how to deal with people. But even that comes off as mad because Mark Russell doesn't commit to the bit. The problem with this book is the tone. Russell thinks he's clever and funny, and that comes across on the page oh so clearly. He's just brimming with vainglory, dripping with it. I'm pretty sure Richard Pace bottles it and sprays himself with it every morning. The tone of the book is supposed to be funny, but it comes off as pretentious, and you can see that in the opening pages. You've got Jesus narrating the thing, and he talks about how God created people and the conflict of God wanting people to be his friends and worship him at the same time. Then he gets to the part about the forbidden fruit and points out that it's silly to put something you don't want people to touch in front of their faces and expect them not to touch it. That's not a bad point. It's actually a valid point that demonstrates the silliness of the Abrahamic creation myth. The problem is that Russell presents God as such a douche that there's no humor to it at all. You can poke fun at this man, it's really easy actually, but you actually have to be funny. You actually have to tell a joke. The setup and the punchline can't just be, God's a dick. Am I right? Am I right? It's not a joke, it's just snark. And that's how this book reads, like the pathetic ramblings you see from the far left on Twitter. They think pointing out that someone is an ass is a joke. This is why they can't meme. They don't understand the concept of explaining something to people not in the know. Every joke they tell is just a snarky in-joke, like you have to know the context on your own because they're not going to explain it to you. Oh, you don't know how to use the three shells? And that's what Russell does here. He expects you to find it funny that God says, quote, I am through with these people. Never should have mixed their DNA with monkeys. From now on, they are on their own. We're supposed to find it funny, at God's expense, that when Jesus wants to give humans a go, God says, that's right, bitches. Son of God coming through. It's just childish. I'm sure somebody finds this funny, but it feels like Russell is just trying to be edgy and offensive, but in this erudite way that only impresses the feeble-minded far left because they like smelling their own brain parts. And this is 5 pages in, by the way. Just 5 pages in, and Russell has already shown his hand, and it's not good. Now, here's where we get another problem. When Jesus goes to Earth, the tone shifts and becomes very serious. There's still some humor, but it's a serious moment introducing Shimon, who Jesus sees as a brother. Shimon plays an important part in the story, and I'll get back to that later. We go back to God, who flips out because Jesus lets himself get crucified, and then God forbids Jesus from going back because it would make God look bad that his son was killed. Then it flips to Sunstar, the Superman knockoff, beating up robots and then hooking up with not Lois Lane, who goes to talk to an adoption lady about getting a kid since she and Sunstar can't have children together, what with him being an alien and all. Quick point here. Richard Pace flips his art style for the 2 sections. All the God and Jesus pages have this scratchy style, and the Sunstar pages have a simplified superhero style. They both work. I'm not thrilled about either of them. I'm just not a fan of these 2 styles, but they are well done and get the job done. Pace is good with handling the expressions and posing. You can pretty much flip through the book and get what happens. I do like the decision to change styles because it gives the pages a different feel. I think it would have been better though to polish up the Sunstar pages with tighter detailing. I think this would have been a better contrast to the scratchy detailing in the God pages. So, the gist of the Sunstar pages is that he and not Lois Lane want a child but can't have any. They're supposed to meet with an adoption lady, but Sunstar gets sidetracked trying to find this missing plane, and he couldn't find it and starts to get down on himself. God, ever the douche, is impressed by Sunstar's power, but doesn't care about his dilemma and decides to send Jesus to him to learn something about dealing with people. So God and Jesus go to heaven. For some reason, they just have to do it this way. And this is a part that actually works. But because Russell has squandered all trust by this point, the jokes fall flat. Your boy Zach mentioned this in this video, and I'm pretty sure this is the part he was talking about, because when I first read it, I would have found it funny if I hadn't been through 15 other pages bukkake with Mark Russell's ego. So God and Jesus arrive, and there's a request for God to welcome the new arrivals. And God says, "What? That's the third time today. I haven't been to Earth in 2,000 years, and these people are still a pain in the ass." And Jesus says, "Well, you did create them in your own image." See, that's funny. And I would have at least chuckled if I didn't have to go through God's douchiness for the first half of the book. Then we get another moment where God meets one of the guys who died in that plane that Sunstar couldn't find. God reads off the dude's list. Bill Morgan. Bill Morgan. It says here that you're an accountant, married with 2 children, not a regular churchgoer, a fan of mean pranks, just died in a Flight 240 plane crash. Sounds about right? Yes, Lord. I'm sorry. I really hate it when angels screw things up, but there's been a mix-up. A mix-up? Yeah, you're not supposed to be here at all. In fact, you're scheduled to be cast into the lake of fire. Lake of fire? Yep, for all eternity, I'm afraid. I know this wasn't the news you were hoping for. Lake of... Man, this is embarrassing. Wait, I'm gonna burn for all fucking angels. I'm just busting your meat. There's no such thing as a lake of fire. Hey, which one of you sick bastards came up with the lake of fire? Was it you, Linda? Was it you? But you see, it's not much fun to be victims of a mean prank, is it? Now, that's funny. Imagine that being told by Ricky Gervais. But because Mark Russell wasted so much time making God an unlikable douche, this just makes him look like more of a douche, which is what Jesus says. If Mark Russell had taken out that need to be edgy and just made God aloof, this would have worked so much better. Anyway, God dumps Jesus onto Sunstar, who then takes Jesus on patrol. Sunstar finds this counterfeit not Pokemon card ring, and I guess that's kind of funny. It's definitely silly, but that goes back to the tone issue, because following this goofy scene of a guy killing himself to protect his counterfeit trading card business, Jesus points out a cross and asks why it's up there. Sunstar says that it's supposed to be important to Jesus because of his mission, and Jesus tells him that it's not, which would be historically accurate, considering that Romans crucified thousands of dissidents. It's not unique to Jesus. But then Jesus talks about his friend Shimon and shares this heartrending story about how Shimon ended up making crosses for the Romans, so his fellow Jews called him a traitor and ignored him. And this goes back to the previous story with Shimon, where as a boy he told Jesus that he didn't like being lonely. So to be cast out by his people and ignored was the worst thing ever, until he saw his brother Jesus carrying one of the crosses that he'd made for the Romans. And Jesus, despite his own suffering, sees Shimon and goes and comforts him and forgives him. That's a powerful moment that's completely ruined by all of the story that precedes it. You've killed the momentum of that moment by trying to make God look like an ass, Jesus look clueless, and Sunstar look like a dick. There's so much flatlining, tongue-in-cheek humor around this moment that it never really gets the weight it deserves. The thing is, that moment with Shimon, that's the story I want to read. That's the character I care about. That's where I'm invested. I don't give a damn about any of these other schmucks. But Mark is gonna Russell, so he adds in this commentary by Jesus where Jesus says, quote, "And the world isn't saved by violence, by bribery, by power. It is saved by being brave enough not to be intimidated," says the writer who uses block bots and supports Antifa. "By being honest enough not to be bribed," says the writer who sucks up to the far left to keep getting work in a failing industry. "And when we fail, it is saved one act of forgiveness at a time," says the writer who thinks anyone remotely associated with so-called Comicsgate is an irredeemable alt-right Nazi. See, even in your moment of writing a powerful scene, your inner douche just comes out. I get the impression that Mark Russell wrote himself as God, which is why he's so insufferable. Even in his follow-up commentary that no one needed, Russell comes across as pretentious. There's no other way to describe it. He tries to make it sound like he's affirming Jesus, one by calling him Christ, and two by painting this holier than thou art picture of what the world might be if we tried to find solutions instead of using force and power. Despite that, the far left that Russell belongs to loves to, quote, dropkick people who don't agree with their ideology. Yeah, I don't need to be lectured about coming together by people who think it's okay to assault a journalist because he dares to cover a terrorist organization that you support. I know you think you know better than everyone, Russell, but you don't. And that's what this book reads like. What Russell intends it to be is anyone's guess. What it comes across as is a weak attempt at trying to be edgy while making a point that Russell never quite gets to. Or in other words, meh. So if you want to check this book out, you can. You're not missing anything if you don't. At least the book was published, that's good. I don't like the idea of people being silenced, but other than that, I'd say just read Preacher. It does it better and it's actually edgy. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.